I'd always thought that some decisions could change your life forever, but I never imagined that dinner would be one of them. That evening I was tired, stressed from work, and the only thing I wanted was to relax at home, perhaps in front of a film. But Giorgio, my husband, had insisted on going out to dinner. He said we needed to spend more time together, find some complicity again. I hadn't given it too much thought, thinking it was just one of his attempts to break the routine. Don't miss the rest of my story. Subscribe to the channel and follow me to find out what happened. We've been married for 10 years, and although I would never admit it openly, things between us had become a little monotonous. The evenings in front of the TV, the conversations that were always the same, the sex that now followed a very specific pattern. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't completely satisfied either. Maybe that was why I hadn't made too much fuss when Giorgio told me that a friend of his, Luca, would be joining us. I didn't know him very well, but I knew they had been close since college. I got ready quickly, wearing a simple black dress and a touch of lipstick. Nothing special. After all, it was just a dinner with friends. I would never have imagined that behind that seemingly harmless evening, a deeper and more shocking plan was hidden. When we arrived at the restaurant, Luca was already there, sitting at our table. He welcomed me with his usual kind, slightly shy smile. It had always been like this, at least in the few meetings we had had. A charming, distinguished man with that air of mystery that I had noticed from the first moment. But I had never focused too much on him. He was just Giorgio's friend, nothing more. The first few hours passed pleasantly. We talked about this and that, between laughter and anecdotes. Luca told funny stories from his university days, while Giorgio seemed more relaxed than usual. However, I noticed something strange in his gaze, an intensity that I couldn't decipher. He almost seemed nervous. At a certain point, after a toast, Giorgio looked me in the eyes and said, in a tone that I will never forget, "Love, Luca and I have to talk to you about something." My heart skipped a beat. Why that serious tone? Why that strange tension in the air? I looked first at my husband, then at Luca, trying to understand what was happening. "Here. I thought we could do something different, exciting," Giorgio continued, lowering his voice slightly, as if he didn't want to be heard by the other tables. I didn't understand where he was going with this, but a slight sense of unease began to creep inside me. "What do you mean different?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. It was then that Giorgio cast a quick glance at Luca, as if he wanted to find comfort in his friend, before revealing their secret to me. Then, with a disarming calm, he replied, "I thought we could have a new experience, the three of us together." I remained silent, frozen in place. My mind refused to process his words. "What? An experience for the three of us?" I repeated, hoping I had misunderstood. "Yes, love," Giorgio said, his voice softer than usual. "A triangle." His words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I turned to Luca, hoping that at least he would show a minimum of embarrassment or disagreement, but what I saw was only a serene smile, as if he were perfectly at ease in that situation. It felt like I was living a waking nightmare. The thing that angered me the most was my husband's calmness. "A triangle," I repeated in disbelief. My voice had gotten louder, and I noticed that someone at the nearby tables was watching us. "Are you crazy, Giorgio? What is this, a joke?" Giorgio didn't seem surprised by my reaction. In fact, he seemed to have foreseen it, as if he were ready for my every objection. "It's not a joke, love. It's just something I thought might spice up our relationship. Luca is a friend. We've known each other our whole lives. I know this might be news to you, but I'm sure if you tried it, you'd appreciate it." I felt betrayed, not so much for the proposal itself, but for the fact that Giorgio had thought of involving me in something so intimate without even consulting me first. Luca's gaze, fixed on me, made me even more uncomfortable. "What makes you think I want to do something like that?" I snapped, raising my voice. "I don't understand how you can even think that." Giorgio lowered his gaze, trying to find the right words. "I don't want to force you into anything, obviously. I just want you to consider it. I know we're kind of stuck, and I thought maybe this could help us." Those words hurt me more than anything. Stuck? And you think the solution is to do it with someone else? With Luca? Luca, who until then had remained silent, intervened calmly. "You don't have to feel obligated, Elisa. There's no pressure, really. But can I tell you something? I understand it's strange, but sometimes you get out of your own zone. Of comfort can lead to unexpected discoveries, even about ourselves. Maybe, subconsciously, I too was looking for something different, even if I didn't want to admit it." After a few minutes, I heard Giorgio's footsteps approaching. "Elisa," he said in a calm voice, "can I explain better?" I turned to him, trying not to give in to the temptation to vent all my anger at once. "Explain? How do you plan to explain something like that?" "I know it sounds crazy," he admitted, looking me in the eyes, "but it's something I've thought about for a long time. I would never have suggested something like this if I didn't think it could help us. I know that things between us no longer go the way they used to." Those words touched me deeply. It wasn't just the scandalous proposal, but the fact that Giorgio was admitting his dissatisfaction. "And do you really believe that this can solve our problems?" "I don't know," he answered truthfully, "but I thought we could at least try. It doesn't have to be permanent. It's just new, something that allows us to get out of the routine. Luca is someone I trust, and I thought he might be the right choice." I remained silent for a moment, letting those words hit me. On the one hand, I was angry and disgusted at the idea of sharing my husband with someone else. On the other hand, I couldn't ignore the fact that I too, deep down, felt that void in our relationship. "What if I don't want to do it?" I finally asked. Giorgio took a step towards me, taking my hands in his. "Nothing will happen. I will never force you to do something you don't want. But I just ask you to consider it, to think about it. If you don't want to, we can leave everything alone." Giorgio's eyes were sincere, and this made me think. Maybe it wasn't just about sex, but something deeper. But could I really overcome my skepticism and accept something like this? We walked home in silence. The car ride was strangely tense, as if we both knew that any word could explode the situation. Giorgio made no further attempts to convince me or talk to me about the proposal, but the thought wouldn't leave me alone. I stared out the window as the city passed by, trying to figure out what I should do. Inside me, the anger and confusion mixed with something darker, a desire I didn't want to admit. Have you ever received an unexpected proposal like this? How would you have reacted in my place? Share it in the comments. I felt torn between my instinct to categorically reject that absurd proposal and the temptation to discover something new, different. The marriage with Giorgio had been safe, stable, but perhaps for this very reason it was becoming too predictable. Until that moment, I had never thought I wanted to look for anything else. Once we got home, I locked myself in the bedroom, leaving Giorgio in the living room. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to face it right away. I felt like the ground was missing from under me, and all I wanted was some space to reflect. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring into space, trying to put my thoughts in order. I wondered if it was normal to feel this way, if others had gone through similar moments and found solutions out of the ordinary. Maybe Giorgio hadn't gone completely mad. Maybe he was just as desperate as me in trying to find that spark that had slipped through our fingers. All night I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. The images of that proposal tormented me, and every time I tried to push them away, they came back even more vivid. The mind continued to retrace every moment of the evening. Luca's confident smile, Giorgio's hopeful look. It wasn't easy to ignore all of this, but I had to figure out what I really wanted. Maybe it meant that our relationship needed to evolve too, and maybe, against all my predictions, this experience could bring us closer together than I thought. Or at least, that's what I tried to tell myself, to convince myself it was the right choice. That evening after dinner, I approached Giorgio. He looked at me curiously, as if he already knew I was about to tell him something important. "Okay," I said finally, trying to hide my hesitation. "I accept, but just once, to see what happens." Giorgio's eyes lit up with surprise and relief. "Really? Are you sure, Elisa?" "I'm not sure about anything," I admitted, "but I'm willing to try. I don't want this proposal to become a wall between us." Giorgio hugged me tightly, holding me against his chest. "You don't know how much it means to me, Elisa. I promise you won't regret it." I didn't answer. I let myself be enveloped in his embrace, even though the tension inside me had not yet dissolved. Part of me wondered if I was really doing the right thing, but by now I had decided to go through with it. After my decision, something changed in the house. Giorgio seemed lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. I, on the other hand, continued to carry with me a subtle tension, a knot that I couldn't untie. I hadn't fully accepted the idea yet, but I was willing to see where this all took us. Giorgio took care of organizing everything, but didn't give me precise details right away. He simply told me that Luca agreed and that everything would happen in a relaxed context, without pressure. This aura of mystery only increased my anxiety. I spent the days imagining what it would be like, wondering if I would really be able to let myself go, as Giorgio hoped. A few days passed as I tried to keep our routine as normal as possible, yet every time Giorgio looked at me or touched me with affection, I felt that unspoken promise suspended between us, a secret that only the three of us knew. Despite everything, a certain curiosity began to grow within me. Part of me wanted to see how it would end. One evening, while we were having dinner, Giorgio took my hand and looked me in the eyes. I spoke to Luca. Saturday night, dinner at our house, just the three of us. We wanted to be a pleasant moment for everyone, without rushing. "Saturday," I repeated slowly. I was still torn, but the decision was now made. I just had to mentally prepare myself for what was to come. Saturday arrived quicker than I expected. I spent the day trying to distract myself, but everything seemed to remind me of the upcoming evening. When the moment arrived, I prepared carefully, choosing an outfit that made me feel comfortable but also attractive. I wanted to feel confident, even if a mixture of nervousness and anticipation was bubbling inside. Giorgio was visibly excited. He didn't stop giving me knowing looks and reassuring smiles. I, on the other hand, was a storm of emotions. Every thought brought with it doubts. What if I hadn't lived up to expectations? What if this changed our relationship forever? When Luca arrived, the tension eased slightly. He acted as he always did, affable and friendly, which made me feel a little more at ease. Dinner passed relatively normally, even though every gesture and word seemed full of meaning. I felt Giorgio and Luca exchanging glances that only I could perceive, as if they were waiting for the right moment to direct the conversation in the desired direction. After dinner, we moved into the living room, glass of wine in hand. Luca sat next to me, while Giorgio watched us from the other side of the sofa. The silence that fell was dense, and for the first time I clearly felt my heartbeat speeding up. "So," Giorgio said, breaking the ice, "Elisa, how are you feeling?" I turned to him, my cheeks flushed from the wine and the situation. "I'm nervous, I guess." Luca smiled sweetly. "It's normal. We don't want to make you uncomfortable, Elisa. We just want you to feel comfortable no matter what." Those words strangely calmed me. It was clear there was no rush, no pressure. It would only happen if I felt like it, and that was what gave me the courage to carry on. He nodded slowly, trying to relax his tense muscles. Giorgio approached, gently taking my hand. "We can stop at any time, Elisa. I want you to know." Those words were decisive. Despite the nervousness, I felt safe, knowing I was in control. So, when Luca got a little closer, I didn't hold back. I felt his breath near my ear and his light touch on my shoulder. It was a strange, surreal feeling another man so close to me while Giorgio was there watching. Yet there was nothing wrong or dirty about that moment. Everything seemed enveloped in a surprising calm, as if all three of us were in perfect harmony, aware and present, without any judgment. The fear was melting away, giving way to an unexpected sense of connection. In that moment, I was completely present, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly wanted. But above all, I felt free to explore, to feel, to experience something new without fear or shame. I knew that this was just the beginning, that from then on we would cross a threshold that would change something between us. But I didn't care anymore. I was ready to see where all this would take us. As the evening progressed, tensions faded, giving way to unexpected intimacy. Luca continued to kiss me gently, and while he did so, Giorgio remained behind me, his hands caressing me with a reassuring calm. I felt surrounded, protected, and at the same time incredibly vulnerable. I had never imagined being in such a situation. The idea that my husband wanted to see me with another man would have infuriated me a few weeks earlier. But now, in that moment, there was an incredible complicity between us. It was as if we were having a shared experience, one that would bring us even closer together. Giorgio whispered in my ear, "I feel you so close, Elisa. You are wonderful." Those words made me smile, even though a whirlwind of emotions continued to boil inside me. Every gesture, every caress, seemed to amplify my senses, making me feel alive like I hadn't in a long time. It was an overwhelming feeling, and the more I tried to resist, the more I realized that I couldn't help but completely abandon myself to what was happening. Luca was delicate, attentive, and most of all, respectful of my limits. His every movement seemed calculated to make sure I was comfortable. This, in a certain sense, made me break down the last barriers that still held me back. When Giorgio got up and went to get more wine, I was left alone with Luca for a few minutes. There was no need for words between us. The silence was filled with the sound of our breathing, the contact of our bodies. I felt my heart beating in my throat, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was excitement. Luca looked into my eyes, seeking silent confirmation. "Are you sure?" he asked me in a whisper. I nodded, feeling the awareness of what was about to happen grow inside me. "Yes," I replied. "I'm sure." There was no more room for doubt. I had made my choice, and now I wanted to go through with it. When Giorgio returned, his look was different. There was a spark of complicity in his eyes, that I had never seen before. He sat next to us and joined our embrace, creating a strange, but surprisingly harmonious, connection between us. That's when I realized it wasn't just about sex. It was something deeper, something about our relationship and mutual trust. I was experiencing something unique, and as strange as it seemed from the outside, in that moment, it all made perfect sense. The hours that followed were a succession of emotions, sensations, and moments that would change me forever. Every kiss, every touch, was full of meaning. Giorgio's presence gave me a security that I never imagined I would feel in such a situation. I was completely immersed in the moment, with no regrets or second thoughts. I felt both of their hands on me, and every movement seemed to amplify the desire I felt. I was lost in that whirlwind of emotions, and the part of me that had been hesitant at first no longer existed. Giorgio whispered sweet words in my ear, while Luca continued to appear incredibly attentive to my needs. We were in perfect harmony, 3 bodies moving as one. Despite everything, there was no rush. Every gesture was calm, every breath slow, as if we wanted to prolong that moment as much as possible. When we reached the climax, it was as if the whole world stopped. The sensations merged into a single wave of pleasure, and for a moment I forgot everything, even who I was. It was just me, Giorgio, and Luca, lost in that moment of pure ecstasy. When it was all over, the 3 of us lay down on the couch, exhausted but satisfied. There was no embarrassment, just a sense of contentment. Luca got up to get dressed, and Giorgio thanked him with a knowing smile. I remained there, with my head resting on Giorgio's chest, trying to process what had just happened. "Are you okay?" Giorgio asked me, stroking my hair. "I'm fine," I replied. And for the first time I realized it was the truth. There was no regret or shame, just a strange feeling of lightness, as if I had finally freed a part of me that I had kept hidden for too long. Luca said goodbye to us and left the house. When the door closed behind him, there was a long silence between Giorgio and me. We didn't need words, we understood each other perfectly without having to say anything. I got up and went to the room, followed by Giorgio. We lay on the bed, hugging each other, and as I fell asleep, I felt a strange happiness inside me. I knew that that evening had changed something in our relationship, but I still didn't understand how much. The next day I woke up early with Giorgio still asleep next to me. I got up slowly, trying not to wake him, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. As the aroma wafted through the room, I sat at the table and began to reflect on what had happened the night before. There was no remorse. In fact, I felt stronger, more sure of myself. I had overcome a barrier that I didn't even know I had, and I realized how much Giorgio cared about me and our relationship. That experience, however unusual, had united us even more. When Giorgio woke up, he came into the kitchen and hugged me from behind. "How are you feeling today?" he asked me, in a voice still thick with sleep. "I feel like we've done something important," I replied, turning to him. He smiled. "I think so too." That day we continued with our lives as if nothing had happened, but we both knew something had changed. There was a new complicity between us, a depth that hadn't existed before, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely satisfied, sure that I had made the right choice. I didn't know if we would repeat that experience in the future, but one thing was certain. I had discovered a part of myself that I didn't know, and this, as far as I was concerned, was the real gift of that evening. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write "I want the sequel" in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of the next publications. Thanks.